Atoms are not individual units of consciousness, refuting panpsychism. Panpsychism, the view that consciousness is a fundamental and ubiquitous property of all matter, has a long history in philosophy dating back to pre-Socratic Greece. Aristotle notes that Thales, c. 624 to 545 BCE, often considered the first Greek philosopher, proposed that everything is full of gods, interpreting natural phenomena such as magnets as evidence of a universal psychic presence. Other early Greek thinkers echoed similar ideas. Anaxagoras posited that the unifying principle, arche, is nous or mind. Anaximenes described the arche as pneuma or spirit, and Heraclitus claimed that the thinking faculty is common to all. Even Plato, in the Sophist, suggested that all things participate in the form of being, which he attributed a psychic aspect of mind and soul, psyche. In modern philosophy, panpsychism has experienced a resurgence through the work of Thomas Nagel, Galen Strawson, and others, including David Ray Griffin, David Skrbina, Philip Goff, and William Seager. Despite these claims, the pre-Socratic and modern arguments for panpsychism misunderstand the nature of consciousness. Atoms, as the fundamental constituents of matter, are not sentient, perceptive, or aware. They are corporeal particles that obey the laws of motion and interaction. Classical materialists such as Epicurus and Lucretius provide decisive refutations of panpsychism, emphasizing that consciousness is a product of atomic arrangements rather than a property inherent to individual atoms. Atoms are motion without mind. Lucretius clearly states in De Rerum Natura that for nothing comes from nothing, and the seeds of things are bodies which have no life or feeling, no intelligence to plan, but move of themselves in accordance with their nature. Book 2, lines 108-122. Atoms, he emphasizes, are the basic units from which all matter arises, yet they possess neither sense, nor reason, nor mind. They do not perceive, do not think, do not suffer, yet from their movement all things arise. Book 2, lines 332-340. In Book 3, he reiterates, nor do the atoms themselves feel anything. They are utterly devoid of perception, yet from their random collisions the universe is formed. Lines 830-835. These passages leave no room for the panpsychist claim that consciousness is an intrinsic property of matter. Atoms act according to physical laws, and from their motion emerges complex systems capable of thought and sensation, but the atoms themselves are mindless. Epicurus also refutes panpsychism in his letter to Herodotus. Open quote, "All sensation and thought is the work of atoms. For the mind is made of the finest and most subtle atoms, which move through the body, and as long as these are intact, the mind perceives, thinks, and judges. But when they are scattered, the mind is destroyed." Close quote. Here, consciousness is clearly dependent on the organized motion of specific atomic configurations, not the intrinsic nature of the atoms themselves. Atoms are necessary for thought and perception, but they are not themselves the locus of consciousness. The mind as an atomic arrangement. Lucretius provides a detailed materialist account of consciousness and its dependence on atomic structures. In De Rerum Natura, Book 3, lines 425-450, he describes the mind and the spirit governing the limbs as a thin, smooth, mobile, and round substance, enclosed within the chest. From it come thought, sensation, and all the passions. And when this is scattered and broken up, thought is destroyed, sensation is destroyed, and all feeling ends. Nothing survives apart from the body. He emphasizes that consciousness is not a separate entity, but an emergent property arising from the interaction of atoms within a living body. Further, he clarifies that the mind is composed of the smallest of particles, the atoms, which move freely within the chest, and from their motions arise every thought, every feeling, every perception, lines 460-465. Epicurus similarly identifies consciousness with fine atoms dispersed in the body, particularly in the blood, heart, and brain. Modern biology confirms these insights. Consciousness arises from neural activity, oxygenated blood flow, and the biochemical processes of cells. When these processes fail, awareness ceases. Consciousness is not an inherent property of matter, but a function of highly organized physical systems. Physical laws and the impossibility of panpsychism. The idea that atoms are units of consciousness also conflicts with basic physical principles. If consciousness were an intrinsic property of atoms, it would still be subject to the second law of thermodynamics, which governs the inevitable dispersal and decay of energy in closed systems. This would imply that consciousness, like energy, could not be preserved independently of atomic arrangements. In contrast, empirical evidence demonstrates that consciousness depends entirely on the organization and motion of atoms within the brain. Neural activity, cellular metabolism, and chemical interactions produce awareness, perception, and thought. When these systems degrade, so does consciousness, illustrating that atoms themselves do not possess experience. Panpsychist theories, from Thales and Plato to contemporary philosophers like Nagel and Strawson, attempt to attribute mind to all matter. Yet classical materialists such as Epicurus and Lucretius, supported by modern biology, demonstrate that consciousness is not a fundamental property of atoms, but an emergent feature of atomic configurations within living organisms. Atoms are corporeal, indivisible particles that act according to natural laws. They are utterly devoid of perception and do not think, sense, or feel. Consciousness arises only when these atoms are organized into complex systems, such as the human brain, capable of sustaining thought, sensation, and awareness. Open quote. All sensation and thought is the work of atoms, but when they are scattered, the mind is destroyed. Epicurus, Letter to Herodotus. Close quote. Open quote. Nothing survives apart from the body. Lucretius, De Rerum Natura, Book 3, lines 425 to 450. Close quote. Atoms are the building blocks of matter, not units of consciousness. Panpsychism fails because it conflates matter with mind, attributing properties to fundamental particles that arise only in highly organized systems. The evidence from materialist philosophy and modern science confirms that consciousness is a function of organization, not an intrinsic feature of the physical world.